Tonight, on First at 9 this Friday, the 9th of January 2026. Dark clouds. Deep depression's impact on Sri Lanka to gradually subside tomorrow, says the Met. Public urged to remain vigilant and act as directed. A better tomorrow. Project 5M inaugurated. 5 million rupee compensation packages disbursed to 26 families in Anuradhapura. Reform tussle. Public funds misused to print controversial modules, complains the SJB to the Bribery Commission. Measures taken to remove the controversial lesson from the module, asserts the Prime Minister. President vows to implement education reforms undeterred. Scales of justice. Former Minister Johnston Fernando and 5 suspects further remanded over alleged misuse of state property.
Kalin baby so rupial anuwakata. Kalin baby podi hamotamai.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to First at 9 on the Derana News channel. I'm Aditya Singha joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world. Brought to you by the only Sri Lankan media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platforms, recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. Now, in a top story tonight, the Department of Meteorology forecasts that the deep depression currently prompting inclement weather across the island yet again is expected to make landfall tomorrow through the coastal line between Trincomalee and Jaffna. The department also noted that there are no signs of the deep depression transforming into a cyclone yet. The Met Department further states that impact of the deep depression over the island is expected to subside tomorrow onwards.
Inclement weather was once again observed across the island off the back of a deep depression southeast of Sri Lanka. This deep depression was located just 250 kilometers away from Pothuwil yesterday afternoon. The Department of Meteorology predicted the deep depression to make landfall along the coast spanning from Hambantota to Kalmune between 5:30 p.m. and 11:30 p.m. yesterday. On the contrary, however, the deep depression changed course to make its way 160 kilometers east of Pothuwil by this morning. The Department of Meteorology expects the deep depression to move northwest and cross the coast between Jaffna and Trincomalee by tomorrow afternoon. Taking the deep depression zone into consideration, the Department of Meteorology predicts heavy rains exceeding 100 millimeters within the northern province. The department expects showers or thunder showers to occur in the northern province and the Anuradhapura and Trincomalee districts. Several spells of showers are also expected in the northwestern, central, eastern and Uva provinces and within the Polonnaruwa district as well. Showers or thunder showers are expected in other areas during the evening and night. The Department of Meteorology further noted that strong gusty winds reaching up to 70 kilometers per hour can be expected in several areas within the northern and north central provinces as well as in the Trincomalee district.
Our observation is that the system is moving northwestward. However, the system is moving at a very slow pace. The system depicts that it will make landfall in Sri Lanka by tomorrow afternoon. It will enter through the coastal belt between Trincomalee and Jaffna. The impact of this system on the island is expected to subside from tomorrow onwards.
The Batticaloa and Baunia districts have been receiving rainfall accompanied by winds since yesterday. Strong winds were also seen roughing up the eastern seaboard. Fishing and naval communities were urged to refrain from seafaring over the possibility of wind-triggered heavy rains, posing risks to vessels at sea. Fishing and naval communities were also requested to remain vigilant and follow all directives issued by relevant stakeholders. As heavy rains continue to fall over Sri Lanka, spill gates of several reservoirs remain open. The Sungavila road leading to the Somavati temple remains submerged as heavy rainfall continues to inundate the upper catchments of the Mahavali river.
ගංගාවල ජල මට්ටම් අවදානම් මට්ටමකට වැඩිවීමක් හෝ විශාල වැඩිවීමක් කිසි තැනක දකින්නට නැහැ. නිසා අපේ ගංගා පද්ධතියේ අනතුරුදායක මට්ටමක කිසිම තැනක නැහැ.
Considering these developments, measures were taken today to close schools in several divisional secretariat divisions of the Badula district by 11 a.m. today. Accordingly, all students and teachers were sent back home. The National Building Research Organisation issued red landslide warnings to Ududumbara within the Kandy district and to the Nildandahina and Walapane divisional secretariat divisions within the Norelia district. Level 2 early landslide warnings were issued to the Vilgamore divisional secretariat division of the Matre district and to the Mathurata and Hangurankata divisional secretariat divisions within the Norelia district.
Immediately evacuate as soon as signs of potential landslides appear. The public must prepare a disaster package containing documentation to ascertain identity, including birth certificates, essential items and other certificates.
In a bid to mitigate potential harm to lives and property, the Valimada police took steps to raise awareness on disaster response among residents.
ඔබේ සම හඳුනාගෙන ඖෂධීය ශාකසාරමය forever face wash එකක් භාවිතා කරන්න.
Now, President Anura Kumara Disanayaka states that an allowance of 500,000 rupees will be provided to households partially damaged by Cyclone Detwa, along with compensation of 5 million rupees to rebuild homes completely destroyed. Speaking at the inaugural ceremony of Project 5M, the President vowed to proceed undeterred with the education reforms, despite the slander, lies and baseless allegations hurled by some.
Project 5M, launched as part of the Rebuilding Sri Lanka initiative, commenced today in Anuradhapura. The project seeks to disburse compensation to those with houses damaged partially or completely by Cyclone Detwa, while also facilitating the construction of new houses. The inaugural ceremony was held in Alubadda Galnava under the patronage of President Anura Kumara Disanayaka.
There is no point in rebuilding completely destroyed houses the way they were. That is why we decided to allocate 5 million rupees each to rebuild completely devastated houses. However, the disbursement will be made in 3 phases. Initially, 2 million rupees will be provided to commence construction. Once construction meets the halfway point, the remaining 3 million rupees will be disbursed in 2 separate tranches of 1.5 million rupees each. Under the supervision of divisional secretaries and Gramalindari officers, we request beneficiaries to construct their houses promptly, since there will be no delay in the disbursement of funds. On the other hand, there are some houses that have sustained some damage despite not being completely destroyed. To those houses that sustained some damage, compensation of 500,000 rupees will be disbursed. Our post-disaster attitude must not be to get back to where we were, but to be better off. To that end, we will disburse the 5 million rupee compensation package to 26 beneficiaries today. Similarly, the 500,000 rupee compensation package and other related aid will also be disbursed promptly. It is difficult to sustain oneself or have a roof over one's head without a proper livelihood. A good living is also imperative to access proper education, a healthy lifestyle, safe housing and good mental health. The government's primary objective is to address these essential needs, including education. Therefore, the government's foremost objective is to provide the required assistance. No one is satisfied by Sri Lanka's current education system. Education today is a burden on children and their parents. If Sri Lanka's education sector had been successful, then we would have reaped better benefits. Just as we took initiative to inspire change, we faced slander, lies and baseless allegations. Our motivation is to give students in rural areas access to good education. We must provide excellent education for children on par with competitive global standards. Reforms will be implemented to facilitate that development. Notwithstanding any effort to derail those attempts, we will proceed undeterred to reform Sri Lanka's education sector.
Several other Project 5M initiatives were also held today in Rajangana, Anuradhapura and Ridigama.
On the subject of education, MP Mujibur Rahman has called for the recovery of 60 million rupees in public funds spent on the preparation of the Grade 6 English module. He made this statement following a hearing led before the Bribery Commission regarding the matter, stressing that taxpayer proceeds must be properly accounted for and recovered where misuse is identified.
Several parliamentarians representing the Samagi Janabala Vega, including MP Mujibur Rahman, lodged a complaint with the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption today, alleging the misuse of public funds in the printing of the controversial Grade 6 English module. The complaint comes off the back of a decision by the Ministry of Education to remove pages containing a link to an inappropriate website that had been included in the publication.
To print and distribute this material and to pay the relevant salaries, public funds were used. The funds used were taxpayer proceeds. If responsibility has truly been accepted, then those responsible, particularly cabinet ministers, should bear that cost. Around 60 million rupees have been spent for this endeavour. Who is supposed to cover this loss? Will it be borne by the government? It must be noted that the government went to the CID not to investigate any alleged conspiracy, but to cover up the issue. At the height of the controversy, the public was told that the CID would conduct an investigation. Now suddenly the matter has been quietly swept under the rug. They claim that the inclusion of the web link was a mistake or part of a broader conspiracy. The education reforms were drafted by Finland, but even the Finnish Minister of Education has stated that the project failed. Despite these developments, a failed project is now on the verge of being implemented across Sri Lanka. If the country's economy is destroyed, it can be rebuilt. But if an entire generation is destroyed through the implementation of useless education reforms, the damage cannot be undone. Off the back of multiple education reform blunders, the Director General of the National Institute of Education resigned. However, the person who should have resigned is the minister. This is precisely why we intend to table a no-confidence motion. When this government makes a mistake, they shift the blame onto officials. All three members of our party will support the no-confidence motion.
දෙනා මේ දිගින් දිගටම මේ අධ්‍යාපන මේ මොඩියුල සම්බන්ධයෙන් චෝදනා කරනවානේ. එතකොට මේවා කියවලද මේවා දැකලද කියවලද මේවා මේ විදිහට චෝදනා කරන්නේ?
Not all of these modules have been released yet, but even the small portion disclosed to the public is extremely alarming. That is the issue. The little we have seen is enough for us to understand the full depth of the problem. The no-confidence motion is irrelevant to us as everyone is aware of the Parliament's composition. Knowing this, the opposition is attempting to divert attention to other issues. That is progressing well. Absolutely. When previous governments introduced such educational reforms, members of the current government opposed them. They were the ones who took to the streets, claiming reforms are wrong. Now, having implemented reforms worse than those of the previous governments, they still claim that they are working for the betterment of Sri Lanka's education sector.
Welcome back. Now in more local updates, the Wattala Magistrates Court ordered to further remand 5 suspects including former Minister Johnston Fernando and his 2 sons until the 23rd of January. During court proceedings today, the Financial Crimes Investigation Division revealed that the investigations have centered around tax evasion linked to the illegal manufacture of liquor using unlawfully procured ethanol.
5 suspects, including former Minister Johnston Fernando and his 2 sons, were remanded recently over the alleged misuse of a Satoso-owned vehicle in 2012. At a previous court hearing on the matter, the Financial Crimes Investigation Division informed court that the arrests were made as a part of an investigation into tax evasion linked to the illegal manufacture of alcohol using unlawfully obtained ethanol. The FCID revealed that a company under suspicion allegedly procured ethanol from the government-owned Sevanagala and Palwatha sugar factories under the pretext of producing soft drinks. However, it is alleged that instead of producing soft drinks, the suspects used the stock of ethanol to manufacture liquor, evading taxes in the process. Investigations further revealed that the company's manufacturing plant was located on real estate owned by former Minister Vijayakala Maheswaran, which had been rented out to former Minister Johnston Fernando. However, Maheswaran claims that she was unaware of such business being conducted on the premises. The FCID has also launched further inquiries into the alleged illegal procurement of ethanol licenses through false declarations and the evasion of government taxes by misrepresenting the intended use of the ethanol so procured. Furthermore, allegations surrounding the purported misuse of Satoso-owned lorry also surfaced in court. According to the FCID, on the 7th and 8th of June 2012, the company in question procured 10,000 litres each of ethanol from the Palwatha sugar factory, which were hauled to the company's manufacturing plant using a Satoso lorry. The driver and assistant were reportedly instructed to hand over the lorry to a third party without maintaining any official transport records. It was further revealed that former Minister Johnston Fernando had requested the then chairman of SATOSA to recruit the third party a day before the incident. Acting on the instructions of the former minister, the individual was then employed for a period of 1 month. The FCID asserts that wages and overtime allowances were paid for 1 month to the permanent driver, the assistant and the third party, resulting in a loss of approximately 244,000 rupees to the government. At today's hearing, counsel representing the former minister submitted a bail application on the suspect's behalf. During court proceedings, counsel representing the former minister asserted that his client was implicated solely because his 2 sons serve as directors of the company under investigation and maintained that the former minister has no direct involvement in the alleged offences. In response, the state counsel informed court that the former minister was arrested based on evidence linking him to the appointment of the third-party lorry driver, who is suspected to have taken over possession of the lorry during the time in question. The state counsel went on to assert that the appointment was made following a written request by the former minister currently under suspicion. Citing some of the latest leads uncovered during investigations, the state counsel claims the assignment was carried out under the former minister's direction. After considering the submissions, the Wattala magistrate dismissed the bail application filed on behalf of Johnston Fernando's sons at the previous hearing and stated that a decision on the former minister's bail application will be delivered at the next hearing. Accordingly, all 5 suspects were further remanded until the 23rd of January.
Now, Prime Minister Dr. Haruni Amarasuni announced in Parliament today that the Academic Advisory Board of the National Institute of Education has ordered that no web links be included in future modules prepared for the 2nd and 3rd terms under the current government's education reforms initiative. Parliament also discussed the purportedly erroneous depiction of the Dharma Chakra in the Religions and Values module.
Under the new education reforms, modules have been introduced for textbooks that have been in use for a long time. Accordingly, 106 modules have already been printed in all 3 languages for grades 1 and 6, where new education reforms are proposed to be implemented. Among these modules, a link was identified in the English language module, categorized as 1, 2, 3, which refers to an inappropriate website. Measures have been taken to remove the lesson containing the link in question from the relevant module. All 106 modules will be distributed to every school by January 21st of this year. During the initial development of these modules, the National Institute of Education included website links and QR codes. However, upon review by the new government, the National Institute of Education was instructed not to provide access to the included web links. The Academic Advisory Board of the National Institute of Education has ordered that no web links be included in future modules prepared for the 2nd and 3rd terms under the government's education reform program. The websites and other online sources currently referenced in the modules are freely accessible and do not require any payment. The use of government websites does not raise concerns related to transparency, accountability or procurement procedures.
I
would like to point out that more errors have been detected. I will particularly point out one critical error. In the module on religions and values, the Ashoka Chakra has been depicted instead of the Dharma Chakra. I request that these pages be removed and replaced with the correct content.
The symbol included in the book is approved by the Department of Buddhist Affairs. It was also approved by the Advisory Council on Buddhism at the Ministry of Education. When I visited the chief prelates of the Askiri and Malwatu chapters, they also confirmed that this is the correct symbol. Therefore, this is the correct symbol.
I will remind the opposition that citizens of this country will ensure that you do not come to power again. I have always stated that if a party is to come to power, it has to be a modern political movement more developed than the National People's Power and not an outdated political movement like yours.
මේ යල් පැන ගියපු දේශපාලන බලවේග නෙවෙයි.
ඇත්ත වශයෙන්ම කියන්න ඕන දැන් මට වෙලාවකට අගමැතිතුමිය ගැන පව් කියලා හිතෙනවා.
On certain occasions, I feel bad for the Prime Minister. Controversy broke out recently when a web link referring to an LGBTQ website was found in the grade 6 English module. Perhaps this controversy was sanctioned by the Palawatta party headquarters. There is no one to save the Prime Minister now, and that is in fact an unfortunate development. The Prime Minister had to visit the chief prelates to save herself. Despite the links being included in the modules, the Prime Minister claims she warned students not to visit the controversial websites. If that is the case, anyone can include an inappropriate link and inform students not to visit the controversial websites. The government that once vowed to eradicate fraud and corruption has now set their plans in motion. Coal that does not meet quality standards have been imported to the country. These are elaborate schemes that take place behind the screen. 10 billion rupees is equivalent to the central bank bond scam. However, the minister and the relevant ministry issued a statement saying fines will be levied if the coal quality falls outside the parameters specified. That is wrong. If 2 shipments are rejected, the tender must be cancelled. Afterwards, the parties will have to enter into a spot contract. We have several criticisms regarding the education reforms. We have noticed the government itself directing allegations against the Prime Minister, apart from usual allegations directed by the opposition. I would like to caution the Prime Minister to protect her position. I must also state that certain individuals who seek her position are carrying out campaigns against her.
කිසිම උවමනාවකුත් නැහැ. එහෙම අදහසක්වත් අපි කිසි කෙනෙක් ළඟ නැහැ.
We strongly believe in the fact that the education system must change in a way suitable for the country. However, what has happened today? Who is going to take responsibility for this? There is no one to take responsibility. The subject minister must appoint committees, and in this case, the subject minister is the Prime Minister herself. If she cannot assume responsibility over the committee she appointed, there is no point in discussing the matter further. Many of those who are in the opposition today were members representing the government for 20 to 30 years. They still operate with the government mindset. They cannot comprehend what happened. They are deeply affected by this. What has happened now? A large number of political and financial crimes took place before 2025. We are aware how certain journalists were murdered. Lasantha Wickrematunge was murdered and investigations are ongoing. It has been 7 years since the Easter Sunday attack took place. 15 years have passed since Tajuddin was murdered. I was able to smell the gunpowder during the previous speech. Many representing the opposition engaged in government politics for decades. They believed in fact that we will never be able to form a government. They took the power that they held for granted and engaged in bribery and corruption because of this belief. The people entrusted us with their mandate. This government is carrying out plans expected by the people. This, however, was not what they expected. This issue has resulted in the loss of billions of rupees. Where will this money go? Who is overseeing these transactions? It is the cabinet of ministers who should be held responsible. The cabinet paper put forward by Minister Kumara Jayakodi was approved by the cabinet led by the president. Those who engaged in building roads are now involving themselves in solar power projects. It was his old company.
එතුමාගේ පරණ කොම්පැනි
මේක මම බොහොම ආයාචනාත්මකව ඉල්ලා සිටින්නේ මේ ආණ්ඩු පක්ෂයෙන්.
I kindly urge the government to think about this. Are innocent expectations of the public being implemented now? If not, is there a tyrannical invisible hand manipulating the government? Kindly think about this. Did you ever fathom that you will ever have to justify mistakes of your own education reforms in this parliament? When you engaged in protests when we were in university, did you ever think that you will have to justify these reforms which were put forward selfishly and arbitrarily by your education minister who lacks basic knowledge of free education? I request the government to join us in front of the statue of CWW Kannangara in Mathugama to protect free education from such destructive reforms.
ඒ පෙනී සිටපු අපේ වීරවරයා කන්නංගර පිළිරුව ඉදිරියට එන්න.
Welcome back. Now in your business news, the Colombo Stock Exchange maintained positive momentum today as a result of price gains in counters such as John Keel's Holdings, Commercial Bank and Valuable One. The benchmark ASPI gained 54% to close at 23,654.30, while the more liquid S&P Sri Lanka 20 increased by 0.70% to end the day at 6,503.20. Market turnover was 8.54 billion rupees. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net sellers, offloading shares worth 8 million rupees. And now here's a look at exchange rates today. Now, in some international business updates, India's trade negotiations with the United States stalled after Prime Minister Narendra Modi did not make a direct call, allegedly, to President Donald Trump to finalize the agreement, US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said today. Speaking on the All In podcast, Lutnick said the deal was close but required a leader-to-leader call to conclude. He said Indian officials were hesitant to arrange the conversation, leading to a breakdown in talks. The collapse of negotiations last year prompted Trump to double tariffs on Indian goods to 50%, the highest imposed on any country, including a 25% levy tied to India's purchases of Russian oil. Trump has since warned tariffs could rise further unless India reduces those imports, a move that recently pushed the rupee to a record low and unsettled investors. India continues to seek tariff terms comparable to past US deals with Britain and Vietnam, though the offer has now expired. New Delhi has not commented on Lutnick's remarks. That's all the news we have for you tonight. Thank you. Have a great night.